Cam Newton. He won MVP in 2015, but since then he's struggled with injuries. It was to be his comeback year with the Pats, but he went 7-9 and then missed the playoffs. Is Cam still a starting QB in the NFL? And if so, where should he go?
I'm going to take the lead on this one.
I'm going to get that one to you.
I'm going to take the lead on this one. Cam Newton is still a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think Cam Newton is somebody who went into a situation with the Patriots where he didn't really have any weapons. There was nobody, no receivers. Julian Edelman went down. All he had really was his legs. And Cam Newton went in there. He made touchdowns happen with his legs. And let me tell you, the reason Brady left the Patriots wasn't because he couldn't get along with this one or that one. The reason he left the Patriots is because they left the cupboard bare. He didn't have weapons. He didn't have a tight end. He didn't have receivers. He didn't believe in N'Keal Harry. He went down to where there was a wealth of weapons. You know what I'm saying? Now he's got AB. He's got Mike Evans. He's got 2 number 1 receivers and Gronk.
He got 4 number 1 receivers. All his receivers are good.
All of them. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, look, Brady does it again. I'm like, you give him that kind of those kinds of weapons, he's going to make it happen. And again, shout out to Bruce Arians. One thing I will say is Bruce Arians has a lot of brothers in that room. You know, amongst those coaches, 4 of his top assistants are Black. He sits there and he trusts a Black guy with his offense. Only a few coaches do that for some odd reason. You want to talk about racism in the NFL? Talk about offensive coordinators. You know, they only seem to give Black guys the opportunity to be defensive coordinators, but not offensive. So I think that's something that, you know, you got to give him, you got to give Kansas City, you got to give them their props for all of that.
Yes, Cam Newton is definitely still a starting quarterback in the NFL. You got to realize the situation he fell into was a team that is used to winning consistently with the same quarterback for 16 seasons in a row. You got to realize the whole dynamic is going to change for that program. Everything's going to be different because there are 2 different styles of quarterbacks. Everybody know Cam is a running gun. He's going to look up. If it ain't there, I'm gone. Tom Brady's going to sit in that pocket, be patient, and just let the things develop. And he also has been in that system for years, so he understands how to use that system and work through that system. So I feel like he just stepped into a situation where it's going to be an adjustment period, and everybody's going to try to judge him based off that because he's been this preliminary or best quarterback in the league for a few years in certain spaces. But at the same time, you got to realize things are going to be different when you jump into a new system. You got to learn the system, and then you got to learn on the fly. And also with this past offseason being non-contact for the most part, he didn't really have a chance to get in with his guys and get that chemistry that they need. So, yes, Cam is still a starting quarterback. It was just a bad year. Everybody has bad years, but it also really wasn't a bad year. He coming off an injury. He's still running the ball. He's showing he's still big and strong. He's down in weight. He still looks mobile. He still looks good. People don't realize he had shoulder surgery as well. So you got to realize that's a great bounce back, but it's a stepping stone for him to continue to move forward in the future.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things that people have been saying about Cam, number one, they've been saying, oh, well, he can't throw the ball anymore. I think it was honestly, and I don't want to blame, I think they did a great coaching job this year, even though they were 7-9. I think Josh McDaniels didn't know how to operate with a quarterback like Cam. Mm-hmm. You know, he either had a quarterback who literally couldn't throw the ball, which was, you know, when he was in Denver, and he had Tebow, where it was just like, you know, a cloud of dust 4 yards at a time with the quarterback running the ball. Mm-hmm. Or you gave it to Yehi and he ran the ball. And you slowed the game down and you had these ugly wins. But with Cam, trying to balance the running and the throwing, I think Josh McDaniels was just kind of getting a feel for that. Also, Josh McDaniels realized those receivers weren't getting separation. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to throw the ball? You know, people wanted him to throw 7 picks a game. You know, if you got quarterbacks that don't, if you got receivers that can't get separation and your quarterback, I mean, Cam has always been a decent thrower, but he's not, you know, he's not Tom Brady. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
And he's always muscled the ball out there. He's never been that kind of fluid baseball pitcher. He's always been trying to get the ball out there. He doesn't have that natural throwing motion. Like, one of the most natural throwing motions I've ever seen, Jamarcus Russell. Most natural throwing motion I've ever seen. It just looked like it just floated.
With a cannon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They say at his pro day, he threw it 60 yards from his knees. Like 60 yards in the air from his knees. But the thing is, Cam has never been that guy. Cam usually is a winner. I think this season he made something out of nothing. He got the ball in the end zone by running it. I think he set the record this year for running touchdowns by a quarterback. He rushed for 500 yards. He threw. People forget that he completed 66% of his passes. They wasn't for a whole lot, but he still completed 60%. The touchdown to interception ratio wasn't great. But you also got to remember one thing that everybody's forgetting. Number one, you were right about the offseason. Barely no offseason with a new system. But beyond that, what you've got to remember about Cam is that this whole Patriots team was destroyed by COVID. They had the most opt-outs of any team in the NFL. I think they had like 11 people opt out. Starters, you know what I mean? Like, not like, bubble guys, but starters opt out of the year. So when you don't have any, you have your team decimated by COVID, people thought just bring Cam Newton in with no receivers, no tight end. Like I said about Tom Brady, he always had a tight end. Whether it was, Gronk, whether it was he who shall not be named, whether it was, who was my man? I was a big fan of that guy.
Right?
What's that?
The brothers.
Yeah. Oh, not Marcellus Bennett. He was dope too.
That's my dog. I like those guys.
I do too. I like them both. But now I'm talking about, I was talking about Hernandez.
Oh, yes.
Hernandez was a beast.
I know they had them at the same time.
They had them at the same time.
And then they used to line up Hernandez in the slot, so he used to go crazy. He was different. Life outside of football aside, he was a great football player. I'm sorry. He's a dog.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, you can talk about what kind of person he was, but when it comes to football,
it goes back to the whole conversation. Can you separate the craft from the person?
Mm.
That's a tough question. I think you can. I think people are really selective with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I highly agree with that one right there. People are very selective with who they choose to cancel.
Exactly. We can look at somebody like talking about, the other thing I'm into, of course, is hip hop. Biggie Smalls is beating women, and he rapped about it too. And guess what? People still be every March 9th, oh, rest in peace to Big, but then talk about, oh, I'm not going to fool Floyd Mayweather because he's a woman beater. And I'm like,
bro, they are very selective of who they choose to like and to support.
Right. Look,
their support really does nothing for that man.
And, I'm going to steal Erica's thunder here because I know she wants to talk about MMA. And Conor McGregor is fighting this weekend. He's fighting Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, I'm going to just say this. I think Dustin Poirier is part black. I'm going to say that because I'm a studies professor. And, the reason I say that, my man's lineup is just a little too tight. Lineup is like, it's just too tight. And then the other thing about Dustin Poirier that makes me think he's part black is dude is from Louisiana. And he a little like, you could tell, I'm like, yo, it's the dead of winter. How you got a tan, bro?
Hey, Dustin Poirier, he be throwing them things too.
Yeah. Nah, he's a dog. But I think Conor McGregor's going to win. But I'll tell you this. I think when we talk about Conor McGregor, people love in the MMA world, they love Conor McGregor because he's cocky, because he's brash. But then they hate on guys like Adrian Broner, and they hate on guys like Floyd Mayweather. Conor McGregor, you see him, he's in tailored suits talking about his bread. He
really bought $1 million watch a few days ago too. Let's not talk about that.
Right.
$1 million watch.
Yo, I don't understand. I do understand. Let me just say that. But it makes no sense that people who love Conor McGregor all of a sudden hate Floyd Mayweather. There's only one explanation for that. You know what I mean? You find me another explanation, I'll be the first one to accept it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you with that one. At the end of the day, you know I was in your classrooms, man. I wholeheartedly agree with that. For you, we just held to a different standard. Right. Sadly, we held to a different standard.
Okay, I want to build off something what Jason was saying, not the whole women beater thing, but let's move over to MMA for a minute. Khabib, does he come back and fight? Jason?
Does Khabib come back and fight? I'm going to say I hope not. And I'll tell you the thing, Khabib, according to Celebrity Net Worth, you know what I mean, is worth $30 million. Now, $30 million is a lot of bread. You know what I'm saying? We still working on, I'm taking over as Savon's manager. We're going to get on that, the 30 M's, you know what I mean?
We need all of.
You know what I'm saying? This is the greatest XFL. You hear me, Rock? It's the greatest XFL defensive player of all time. Now that may have been one season, but hey,
Hey, we ain't get the finish either, but we ain't gonna talk about that.
Right, exactly.
Could have been.
But 30 mil, you could do well with 30 mil here. Now, Khabib, I believe, lives in Chechnya. 30 mil goes a long ways in Chechnya. You know what I'm saying? That 30 mil, multiply that times 7 in Chechnya. You know what I'm saying? So
that's a great way of living right there.
Right. What does he need to go and fight somebody for? And somebody that he beat down and made tap out. You know what I'm saying? To prove what?
I feel you, but once you're in something you love, and you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it because you love it. You know what I mean? And I feel like the only reason he stopped fighting because his dad passed away. That was the reason for fighting. So he didn't have no external things other than that. But I feel like if he I don't know if he's going to come back or will he come back. I feel like he may stay true what he said about his dad. But apparently Dana White said he's in talks of coming back. Like you said, he doesn't need to come back, but if he does come back, it's because he loves to fight. Like they said, this man grew up training fighting bears, bro. Like, who does that? But that man to release that aggression somehow. And if he doesn't, I feel like he can go back to Chechnya causing problems. He don't want to relax. He don't want to relax.
Yeah,
realistically, I could see grief taking you out of it. Mental health is a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. So with that said, what about Adrian Broner battling depression? Do you think he should come back?